And after a long break, what the papers are saying is back tonight on your screens on City TV. My name is Vivian Kai Loco. What the papers are saying looks at the big stories for the week. Now, I will take a quick break. When I come back, I'll give you an idea of some of the big stories that we saw for this week. And then we'll delve into the issues raised around those stories. Stay with us. We'll be right back. So welcome back to What the Papers Are Saying. My name is Vivian Kai Loco. Let me take you through the big stories for the week. I'll start with the newspapers and, of course, start with the Daily Graphic. And one of its big stories for the week was Okujetua Blakwa petitions charged to investigate Reverend Kusibwating. The new publisher says Bishop Dak walks away over unseen hands controlling National Cathedral cash. Still on the National Cathedral, the new crusading guy says National Cathedral Secretariat sets record straight on 2.6 million CD loan received from JNS. Let me bring you to City Newsroom and how it covered that story. Three key stories around that. The first, Akufo-Addo picked architect land for National Cathedral before appointing trustees. Still with City Newsroom, National Cathedral scandal. We're given a Blakwa's petition needed attention. This charge speaking. Still around the National Cathedral, and still with City Newsroom, National Cathedral, government taking financial decisions instead of Board of Trustees, Bishop Dak speaking. And this is how the Daily Analyst covered it. National Cathedral brouhaha, I'm ready to face a Blakwa at charge, Reverend Kusibwating charges. The Herald says Bishop Hereward Mills reveals dark and dirty secrets about National Cathedral project in resignation letter. And then the Republic Press says Dak opens can of worms, questions $40,000 monthly payments to National Cathedral contractors. And finally, on that story, I wasn't privy to weighty decisions on National Cathedral. This is Bishop Dak speaking. Now, another story that for the past 3 days or so has been making some headlines around is the gentleman who claimed that police officers and military had planted some weed and cocaine in his car. And this is how some of the online portals reported it and some newspapers. Now, with City Newsroom, it says, man who accused police of planting narcotics in his car arrested. Still with City Newsroom, police probe audio of officers who allegedly planted narcotics in doctor's car. And then graphic.com GH says, man behind audio alleging police planted weed, cocaine in his vehicle arrested. So that is how that story was covered. And then a few weeks back, we had a story about the Chiana students who were dismissed over some derogatory remarks they made with regards to the president. Now, the Ghanaian Times covered it this way, says GES rescinds on punishment of 8 Chiana SHS students. Still with City Newsroom, dismiss Chiana SHS students return to school. And then Education Ministry to appoint Dean of Disciplinary Affairs in SHSS. And then the final story that has made some headwaves is the story to do with the debt exchange program. And this is how the Daily Graphic reported it. Technical team to review individual bondholders' proposal. Daily Guide, government hot over debt exchange. And the Ghanaian Times says government extends the domestic debt exchange deadline. If you go to City Newsroom, it says suspend debt exchange program now. This is a Christian council. They released that statement on that matter today. And finally, on the City Newsroom, individual bondholder groups welcome formation of debt Exchange Committee. So those are the big stories that made headlines for this week. We'll start our discussion with the National Cathedral. I have two gentlemen here who will be helping me look at the issues that have come up around these stories for the week. I have with me Samuel Atamensa. He is with City FM as well as City TV. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Then I have Richard Sky is also here at City TV as well as City FM. By day, he's on the City Breakfast Show. Sky, welcome. This is your first time here, isn't it?
Thank you.
Welcome. So guys, let's start with the National Cathedral because just over a week, so many things have come around it. I mean, the discussion over the National Cathedral started from day one when the president announced that it intended to build this cathedral. There's been issues around the cost of construction, the timing, the location, funding, and also the role of the state and the church in the construction of the cathedral. I think we can start with the cost because we've had the Member of Parliament, Okujetua Blakwa, petitioning government over some issues to do with some of the members of the trustee. If you allow me, I'll read a story from the Daily Graphic with regards to that. And it says, the Member of Parliament for North Tong, Samuel Okujetua Blakwa, has petitioned the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice to investigate the Secretary of the National Cathedral Board of Trustees, Reverend Victor Kusibwating, over conflict of interest, including possession of multiple identities and other alleged criminal dealings. The petition, which was received by Shraj, also alleged that there was a transfer of 2.6 million city cash from the National Cathedral Secretariat to JNS Talent Center Limited, owned by Reverend Kusibwating, under his secondary identity, that is Kwabna Edu Jemfi. Now, the Secretariat itself has responded to Ablakwa's allegations, and if you permit me again, I'll take you to the New Crusading Guide, where that story is the National Cathedral sets straight record on 2.6 million loan received from JNS. And it says the National Cathedral Secretariat has refuted allegations by the Member of Parliament for North Tong, who claimed that 2.6 million was paid to a company owned by a board member. Now, JNS Talent Center Limited, which allegedly runs a crèche in Dawenya, was paid some 2.6 million to build the cathedral. The lawmaker revealed owned by one Kwabna Edu Jemfi. Now, according to him, documents in his possession reveal that Mr. Kwabna Edu Jemfi is the same as Reverend Victor Kusibwating. But the Secretariat, in a statement, explained that the 2.6 million cedi was a refund to JNS Talent and not an amount illegally paid to the company. So a lot of issues around the funding and the construction. Sometimes let me start with you on the issue of the construction and the fact that now we have one of the members of the Board of Trustees being pulled to Shraj to answer issues of conflict of interest and all that. How do you respond to all these issues that are coming around on the National Cathedral? Let's start with the cost and the funding and the issues of conflict of interest.
Well, the cost was always going to be a problem. And again, anytime the church and the state decide to embark on a mission of this nature, there definitely will be some complexities that will require, proper, if you like, context for us to understand and to resolve. And so for me, I'm not surprised that it's come to this point. Right from the get-go, I knew that if there was ever going to be a problem from the constitution, or the makeup of the church body, it was likely to come from the independent church leaders who are used to having their way in their decision making, as opposed to those that belong to larger denominations who have, if like, a more structured way of accountability. And so I'm not surprised at the way things have gone. Having said that, I think Ablakwa has done the nation a great service by bringing these things to the fore. We must commend him for because how many parliamentarians do we have? And how many of them dared the system? And then after that, I think it's also important that we recognize the usefulness of Shraj in making a final determination of these issues. For now, it's your word against my word. You said, I said, because they throw in, the Reverend has also responded. But the good thing is that Shraj is there to make a final determination. So I think for us, where we sit, we have to watch Shraj do its work, and they will all come to a final conclusion.
So I take your initial comments on that.
Well, I think it's been really useful, the campaign that the Honourable Member for the Norton constituency has been on, because far too often people make allegations without taking the next step to challenge the basis upon which certain decisions have been taken. So the Honourable Member clearly is on the right path, making allegations and seeking resolution of those allegations before Shraj, which is the constitutionally mandated institution to deal with this matter. And we would all expect that Shraj would respond accordingly. We've already heard them say that indeed they have received the petition and they are acting on it. What we would expect going forward is that preliminary investigations will be done, as is normally or usually the case with Shraj, and then ultimately there will be an invitation extended to the gentleman in question for him to respond to the specifics of the allegations as having been made, and then we'll proceed therefrom.
But the issue of conflict of interest has come up in this matter, where the Reverend, for example, his company was given a loan to the Secretariat to facilitate some construction work. I mean, doesn't that breach the issue of conflict of interest being part of the trustees?
First of all, I would proceed rather cautiously because, you know, as you know, I'm an officer of the courts, and a matter like this before a commission which is constitutionally mandated to deal with it, commenting on it in a very prerogative, what do you call it, might lead to potential, if you like, I don't know, to undermine sort of the authority of Shraj.
I mean, I'm bringing that up because the Secretariat responded to the issue of the 2.6 billion cedis, saying that indeed the money came in, but it was used to facilitate some construction work, and it was a loan. That's why I'm touching on that.
So I just don't want to be, you know, they seem to be making a prejudicial comment about this matter. But suffice it to say that, look, the Constitution is clear. If you look at the provisions of the Constitution, specifically Article 284 of the Constitution, it says, with your permission, that the public officer shall not put himself in a position where his personal interest conflicts or is likely to conflict with the performance of the functions of his office. Again, if you look at the provisions of the Companies Act, it also preaches against, you know, a company official putting himself in a conflict of interest position. And where a potential conflict is likely to occur, what you are required by law to do. Now, the question which you ask is whether the gentleman, who we are told by the allegations flying around, has multiple identities, at least two of them, whether he was well aware that by reason of the position he occupied in his private company, and by reason of the official position he's been given within the architecture of the cathedral, he was in a conflict of interest position when his company allegedly sought to advance a loan to the Secretariat for purposes of constructing the cathedral. I mean, from a clear reading of the wording of the Constitution and then also the relevant legislation covering this matter, it would seem that there is a likely conflict, or a likely conflict has arisen. And perhaps the question then would be whether he disclosed the conflict during board decisions or board discussions on this particular matter. So far, the Secretariat has been cagey as not to tell us exactly what may or may not have happened during their meetings on this particular matter. I heard Reverend Joyce Aye today on Eyewitness News, and she was particularly cagey as to what to say and not to say about meetings of the board. So it would seem that there are serious questions to be asked. If the conflict was not disclosed, and if he proceeded on the basis of knowing that these things were in play and did not disclose them and advance loans to the Secretariat, something would have happened that would have been unlawful, and perhaps Shraj is the appropriate institution to deal with it.
Okay, sometimes without also being careful not to go into the issue.
I don't have any law to quote, so there's nothing to be careful about, man.
I mean, issue of funding is a big thing around this. We still do not know how much seed money, for example, the government has given to this Project One. We do not know how much.
I think the government has crossed the seed. They've now read the fruit. So we should stop talking about seed money.
We don't know how much.
Now we are actually plucking the fruits. But let me address this thing about conflict. You see, I was a bit uncomfortable when is it Dr. Opoku,
the chairman of the
no, not the chairman, the person who runs the place. Referred to it as a loan. Okay, now that's why I started by saying when you have people who own their churches, independent churches, who are used to doing things in a particular way, assemble together to take decisions regarding a project like this, you are likely to face some of these things. Okay, now this person comes to a meeting and they say to him that, look, we have to pay these contractors, but we don't have money. What does he do? He goes into his backyard, finds money. Okay, take the money and use it. And then when you get the money, give it back to me. This is how they process things. Okay? Now, I ask myself, how did he benefit from it? Did he take an interest? No. What other benefits were hidden because he did this gesture? We do not know. So for me, on the face value, I am thinking that if there are problems with this whole National Cathedral thing, this 2.6 million will be the least of the problems. It will be the least.
You see bigger ones coming?
There may be major problems. Indeed, there are major problems. But as for this, Reverend Kusibuati and this 2.6 million, I think that we are overblowing this particular one. Okay? Because he gave. Now, the basis of his giving is what we call taking for grantedness. The man just took it like, say, you know, that kind of thing. Now he will know on hindsight that he shouldn't have done that. But I don't see the criminality in it. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't see the criminal. And again, we have not established that he benefited from it. So which advantage did that give him? Okay, so conflict of interest. Which interest? Okay, so this is, but if I hear the word loan, what were the conditions of the loan? Did they apply for it? You know, I think that they didn't work with structure. This is how I look at it. They did not work with structure, which is not a good signal. But to impugn criminality at this point, I think we are also overstretching it. You know, because this is somebody who doesn't get paid for doing what they are doing, but they are doing these things out of conviction and personal interest in what they see as a monument that represents their faith. There will be questions, no two ways about that. No matter how they resolve this one, the questions will not end.
Now, there are a lot of...
I thought I could just make a quick right there. I mean, Papa Sam, I think the position is not that they are imputing criminality.
Some people are on social media.
If you're dealing with Shraj, they are dealing with possible wrongdoing. That's the allegation of wrongdoing. Now, the issue of criminality comes up where there is a suggestion that he holds multiple identity. Of course, if it is
No,
the
Sky,
case, yeah.
I said with specific reference to the 2.6
No,
million.
I understand.
There
So
are
I've dealt
other
with
issues.
I've dealt with the Shraj
Yes.
one.
So this is the multiple,
The
the possibility of identity.
Exactly.
That's a different
Exactly.
situation.
So that if it is the case, again, if it is the case that a public officer, and I'm using the word advisedly, of his stature, indeed wields multiple identities and use that to facilitate, as some people have said, the contract,
transaction,
the
yeah.
transaction,
Yeah.
then it would seem that there's something that has got to be investigated. Because you cannot be acting in a certain capacity, in your private capacity, as someone else. And then when you are acting in your public office capacity, your identity is entirely different.
Yeah.
The law does not allow it. We must know who we are dealing with at what particular time and ensure that transactions are by the book. And if it turns out that indeed he wields two different, identities, then there is a problem there to be dealt with.
Sky, for me, there's no conditionality here. It has to be investigated.
Yeah, sure.
Whether or not we find out he has two identities or, this is, that's why they are called trustees.
Yeah.
That's why they are called trustees. They're not ordinary people.
They
And
must be
trustees,
above board.
exactly. Trustees are carefully chosen. People with high repute, people with a track record of significant track record. So I think that if we go through the process of investigating and the outcomes are, clear them, it restores confidence to a certain extent. To a certain extent. If we see otherwise, then punishment will have to be exacted, and then we can go on with our lives.
So we look forward to that Shraj investigation.
In the
and
meantime,
see
I would say that
what
there has
is
to be a
done.
dissolution of the board entirely, because the scandal.
Now, I was coming to one of another trustee, a trustee who has resigned, which is the founder and leader of the Lighthouse Chapel International. This issue really is, he says he wrote about issues to do with cost, design, location, fundraising, mobilization of the churches, and the role of the trustees, which he found issues he raised around those things were not looked into until now. A lot of questions he raised was not looked into. Now, the chairman of the Board of Trustees has also, responded to that, saying that some of the issues he raised, for example, to do with the design, location, were things that the president himself had done before trustees were brought on board. So, for example, the issue to do with the architect and the land, the president had dealt with that. The partnership between the state and the church, it was an issue that had been done. The cost and all that, they had gone through all that. And he raised the issue in conclusion about, I think something Samez raised in the beginning about how some leaders of the churches in their own way deal with their issues and are not able to deal with issues like in a team, because they are used to running things on their own, and people may not have their way in issues of that. Should we throw away the issues that Dark Edward Mills has raised, or is something the Secretariat needs to look at to deal with? He's talking about the cost, which everybody is talking about. Design, I think we move from that a bit. Location is a big thing. Fundraising, so now we don't know how much the Secretariat has gotten in terms of what is raised. We don't know how much the government has given. And the mobilization of the church is an issue, and the role of the trustees, there are issues around that. Are these things we really need to look at moving forward, Samantha?
Well, I think, again, Dark Edward Mills raises very pertinent issues. Some of those issues have been adequately answered by Apostle Opoku Onyina. And so, but then again, my thing is, I read through Dark Edward Mills's letter, and I asked myself a few questions that some of the things that he raised are things that were there from the beginning.
Which is what
the things that were there from the beginning. So he should have told himself right from there that I don't want to be part of this. Indeed, Reverend Otabil resigned earlier. So if In the last paragraph of Opoko Nyina's thing, he says that some people are not having their way. Which people is he talking about? You know, in my little corner, I say to myself that the pastors should now appreciate what it means to be a Christian and working within a secular environment. These are real challenges. These are the things we face on a daily basis. You're a Christian, you don't work in the church, you work in a secular organization. And today we've brought all of them into the system. And it's punch for punch. The thing is happening, somebody wants to remove himself, somebody says, oh boy, you remain. You know, that's what we are seeing. But I'm saying that what Dahiwad Mills wrote, there was nothing new in it. Dahiwad Mills has a track record to show for what he has done.
Yeah.
If you go to Ekuapim Mampong, you can see the vast expanse of land and the monumental buildings that he's put for his Nakazo,
yeah.
you know, Bible College, and you know. So he has done it. He's been brought on board. Maybe, given his experience, one would expect that he will be given a certain instrumental role. Now he sees things going in a way which is not consistent with what he believes will work.
Yeah.
So he takes a decision that, okay, based on this, I want to bow out. And I think it's fine. So in my estimation, he's brought the issues. They should resolve the issues he's raised. There are questions. There are indeed legitimate questions. Now, if the board believes that they are not in a position to answer all the questions to satisfy Ghanaians, then they should call a meeting and dissolve the board. If they believe that they can go on, answer the question, make progress, then they should also convince us. But we shouldn't leave things hanging, like so that the public will always be trying to play catch up to find out what you are doing before you tell us some, and then you move on, and then the next time we find out something is happening. You know, we called it a national cathedral. It means you are putting it up on behalf of the nation. And so citizens are interested.
Yeah.
So I think that it throws the responsibility back to the Board of Trustees to make sure that they clarify all the issues being raised. Indeed, even going through the issues that Dahiwad Mills has raised, again, I say there's nothing new. A lot of them are questions that have been thrown about
from the public, yeah.
From the public. Ablakwa has done it. Sam George has done it. A number of people have done it. You know, but because they wear political colors, at times we try to impugn political, you know, bias into it.
Yeah.
But now one of your own has come out and is asking the same questions. Dahiwad Mills, has he always been part of the meetings? Has he always been part of the board? Has he been attending meetings? So for him to have attended all the meetings for the last 2 years and a bit, only to come out and ask these questions, I mean, we can't take it for granted.
Yeah.
We can't take it for granted.
We cannot.
I mean, the apostle has spoken, but he will be diplomatic. He may not give too much out, because what I see is that this is going to be a long-drawn battle. Trust me.
Well, we'll come to the timing of this cathedral and whether it's a good idea, you know, to build it now, where it is, whether that's where it should be. But Sky, I'll take your final thoughts around DAC's issue and the board, and then we'll move to whether we should be even doing this cathedral or not.
Well, as Samuel stated, look, Dahiwad Mills, the bishop, has solid track record in the management of mega projects of the kind we're talking about. He's done so many things in his life, ran a church successfully, and if you go to Anakazo, you would see evidence of massive capital investment which is sitting there. And someone had to put vision together to make that happen and to put resources behind it. I do not believe that some of the issues that he raised are not new. Because, for instance, for the first time we are told by him that people or unseen hands are making decisions for and on behalf of the Board of Trustees. I mean, if you are put in charge of a project of this size and you are responsible by law for the implementation of what you have been given, the expectation will be that you are the people discussing what is to be done, how is to be done, when it is to be done, and the approach entirely to adopt to make it happen. But a man of his size is telling us that since he was attending meetings and he was appointed verbally by the president, unseen hands were taking critical decisions regarding financing, regarding what to do, what not to do, and all of that. I mean, these are serious corporate governance issues if you look at it within that remit. If matters come up tomorrow about possible prosecution, who are they going to prosecute? The question will be, who were the members of the Board of Trustees? So that is a key issue to talk about. Again, there's also an issue of shifting cost of the project. Yes, it is the case that we have heard all kinds of reports about what the exact cost is. Yeah. But if a person of his size, sitting in his position as a member of the Board of Trustees, doesn't know where the cost stops, that is a major issue. And then where there are cost variations in the variation of the scope of the work, so the additions are made here and there. And we are told that for some reason, these were not matters decided upon by the Board of Trustees. These are very serious issues.
Most of these issues had been done or decided before the trustees came on board.
No, the changing costs were not decided by anybody. Yes. And we've had these things. The question about how much is going to cost. Yeah, it can't be fluid. The thing has changed. I think it changes with the month.
Yeah, because it started with $100 million. Now it's at $350 million.
And it keeps changing. Yeah. It keeps changing. And nobody knows what inputs will cause the change. This is the problem. Now, if we started by targeting $100 million for a national cathedral, what would, under our situation, cause anybody to project this thing and increase it to 300 million?
It has to be very reasonable explanation.
No, there cannot. No, there cannot be any reasonable explanation.
Maybe they've increased the scope of work.
You cannot increase the scope of work.
Because they added two things. I think Madam Joyce, I even spoke about. I forgot the two
added Bible Museum and Biblical Garden.
What I'm saying is that. So why don't you phase them out over years? Why don't you just phase them out over years? We've seen cathedrals built over a period of 20 to 25 years in other countries. So why don't you, phase one will cost 100 million and it's going to take, say, 5 years. We are happy with that. Okay? Phase two, where is the rush? Why are we rushing? And if you are taking $300 and something million to build a cathedral in this Ghana today, there's a big problem. I mean, I am one of the people who supported the idea of building a national cathedral.
Are you still in support?
Oh yes, okay. The idea of having a national cathedral. No two ways about that.
Hang on with that thought. I'll come back to you. I need to take a quick break.
But Bible says no man goes to war at his own expense. Okay. We cannot go and build a cathedral and then suffer in the process.
So I'll come to you to wrap up on that in Sky as well. Whether the timing is right and the amount of money we are pumping, whether it makes sense economically, especially with our economic challenges. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello and welcome to the Effective Living Series 2023.
Another year is upon us, and we are poised to kickstart this new revolution with the utmost zeal. City TV and City FM present to you another rewarding season of the Effective Living series. This year, the Effective Living series will be riding on the back of the theme 2023 Starter Pack, Building Back Better. Every week in the month of January, our team of renowned experts, alongside our exceptional host Bernard Avle, will delve into various thematic areas that have been carefully selected to cater to your holistic well-being in the coming year. Week 1 will focus on the importance of physical preparation for 2023. After that, we will take a look at emotional and mental health imperatives for 2023 in our second weekly series. Then, we will proceed to the third weekly series with emphasis on professional priorities for 2023. In our fourth and final week, we will dig into the strategic conversation on building financial foundations for 2023. The Effective Living series will be live on the City Breakfast Show on 97.3 City FM at 9 a.m. and on Breakfast Daily on City TV at 9:30 a.m. from Monday through till Thursday. So join us and let's get ready to be equipped with practical information for building back better in 2023. The Effective Living series is sponsored by Enterprise Insurance and Hallmark Freights and Logistics Ghana Limited.
So yeah, welcome back to What the Papers Are Saying. My name is Vivian Kailok. I'm here with Samuel Atamensa as well as Richard Sky. We're looking at the big stories for the week, and our discussion currently on the table has to do with the National Cathedral, issues that have come around it. We're now on whether it's the right time to build this cathedral and whether we should be spending as much as $350 million, translating to about 3.5 billion cedis, if my math is right at this point, and spending that at this time when we know that we have some economic challenges to deal with, our debts and all that. So, is it the right time to build this, to spend this amount of money building a cathedral? You were a supporter of the cathedral.
Oh, yeah. I still support the idea of building a national cathedral.
Okay.
No two ways. I'm not going to change that.
Okay.
But I do not think that if we started with a set amount of 100 million, which 100 million we convinced ourselves and the entire nation that we're going to raise from outside of government. Is that correct? So we all got along. And then along the line, we noticed that some way, somehow, things have changed and brought the figure from 100,000 to something in excess of 300 million. So 100 million, something in excess of 300 million. And I'm saying that that is not correct. With the kind of economy we have and the numerous challenges we are facing, much as we have the conviction that we want to put up this edifice, I don't think in terms of priority, it should come ahead of resolving some of the major issues crippling the economy. And so if they pushed it to 300 million and suddenly some people from other countries or even Ghanaians decide that we are donating for you to build, so be it. But once you start crossing that barrier of dipping your hands into the national coffers, that's where the red flags come up.
Should we halt this project? Should it be halted?
I think the project itself is wobbling to a halt.
On its own.
The project itself, you know, it's like a vehicle with deflated tires. It's just wobbling to a halt. You see, because you see, these pastors, as I said, they are not used to this barrage of queries, and they are not used to it. Trust me. So if the way the public interest has risen and the queries and the insults, and if it goes on the way it's going, trust me, a lot of them are going to shut up, keep quiet, or resign. Now, the energy with which they were raising the money has actually dwindled. It's gone down. And government, I wouldn't even say government is not going to put money in. Government doesn't even have the money in the first place. So, technically, the project will just come to a halt.
Right.
It will just come to a halt.
Sky, should we halt this and move on with our lives? When we're okay as a country, perhaps visit it again?
Well, you see, for some reason...
You are in support of it, right?
You see,
Or
I have a very...
Stay away from that.
Yeah, because of a relationship, you know, my own
God.
relationship with the project and God himself.
Okay.
And so I would rather, you know, you let this pass me by.
Okay. In terms of
My brother,
don't support or not,
don't bring God into it. Don't bring God into
I know
it.
why I'm saying what I'm saying.
No, what you see, the point, you see, I'm saying that. You see, the concept of having a national cathedral, I support it 200%. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's right.
Now, the way we have processed this whole thing is what is throwing out the legitimate questions.
Yeah, of course. I mean, those questions have got to be
Exactly.
answered. And,
Exactly.
And on the matter of the need for proper reforms as to ensure, of course, if the view is that we should build it, we must find the money to build it. But the question is whether we are going to take tax resources.
Why should we choose an expensive pathway in building a national cathedral?
Yeah, that's the question. Yeah.
I'm saying
Especially
that
around
Daggy
this
Ward
time.
Mills has put up something beautiful at Mampong, and we've all been there to see. The Church of Pentecost has put up something massive in Kaswa area. Okay, it is their choice. They could have gone for a $500 million edifice, but they looked at their pocket and decided that, look, let's go to what's the name of the place? This Kaswa place, Nyanyano area, where the land may be cheaper. Let's buy the land. That God Mill said, let's go to Mampong, where the land may be cheaper. We are government. Let's go to Ridge, where the land is very expensive.
I mean, that was an utterly irresponsible decision.
But will
Governmental
people
decision,
move to areas like that?
To do what?
To go to a national cathedral. That's
If people
issue.
will not move, then there's no
No
need
need
to be built. Because there has to be a compelling reason why we travel from here to Elmina to experience the
castle.
Elmina Castle.
Yeah.
Because there's history attached to it. There's emotion attached to it. You understand? So if you are putting up this edifice, it must count for something.
Yeah.
It must count for something. So I say, I agree with the concept, the idea of having this edifice, but how we have processed it is what is giving us away.
Right.
And we need to answer the questions. See, this is one project that if you have been involved in, you can't get away at any point. Even when you are dead and gone, people will still associate you with it. So they better answer the questions.
All right. So we'll see what comes out of the Strash report and the issues raised, whether we'll get some answers and whether they'll be proactive to tell us the things as they come along rather than waiting. We'll wrap up with a second story, which for the past 3 days or so has been making a lot of waves, not just in traditional media, but online and new media as well, to do with a gentleman who accused the police of planting some drugs in his car and demanding some amount of money. Now, it turns out, according to the police, that that story is false. We don't have so much time for me to go through the statements from the police, but basically the police said that is not true. The suspect has been arrested currently and interrogated and all that. Sky, I mean, this is an interesting case because this may not be true, but we've had people who have come up to say that they've experienced things, around this.
I think, first of all, I mean, you see, there is a growing culture of people sometimes, for some reason, taking advantage of the seeming anonymity provided by social media to say all kinds of things, hoping to get away with it. I think the law has to deal with that robustly. People who do that have got to be found and now the Signals Bureau of the Ghana, Police Service, and then the National Security. They have the competence to get to you, even when you are hiding behind a mobile phone or whatever you're doing. So this whole idea that you can get away with it is no longer the case. And I'm in support of what the police are doing, except that there are questions that come up. First of all, I mean, as far back as 2019, there was a story that was published and where the IGP of the time actually complained about the fact that they had received reports of some officers on the highways planting weed on drivers and extorting money from them. So it is not an entirely surprising development. Now the question is whether the specific matter we're talking about actually occurred, and whether the gentleman who claimed to have been the victim was actually the victim. The police are telling us that he has since been arrested. They have interrogated him, and he is claiming that no, he was not the victim, but that he was driving someone else.
Telling somebody's story.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at the provisions of our laws, and quickly, with your permission, let me look at one of the provisions dealing with what they call the Criminal Offences Act. If you look at Section 208, dealing with publication of false news, the law is clear that you cannot put out information, publish the same to the public, knowing that the information you are putting out is false, or where you have not taken reasonable steps to ensure that you have ascertained the veracity of what you are putting out. Again, the law moves on to say that where you are reporting or you are passing on information coming in from somebody else, you have an obligation to investigate, take reasonable steps as to investigate whether what you are putting out is credible. So let's even assume that this gentleman was putting out information that someone had passed on to him, or something that he may have become aware of by reason of some accident or something else. He was under a legal obligation to take steps to ensure that he ascertained the veracity of what he was putting out.
No, he was reenacting.
To the extent that we are told that he is claiming that he was regurgitating somebody else's story. Without having taken steps to ascertain the veracity of what he had put out, it would seem that he is in breach of the law, and the law would have to deal with him. Now, the question then is whether the confessions that he is thought to have made was made lawfully.
Lawfully, yeah.
Now, if you look at, again, our laws, there is a requirement that where a person is deemed to be making confession, there needs to be an independent witness present in order to give validity to the said confession. So far, the police statement doesn't tell us whether there was a lawyer present when he was being interrogated, and whether there was an independent witness removed from the investigation. I think these are gaping holes in the police story, and some way, somehow, we should become aware of what exactly may or may not happen when they were investigating.
Your thoughts on this issue, and then we'll look at these allegations around.
You mean my thoughts on
this
the
gentleman?
issue of not gentleman, Dr. Patrick Esidlu. Dr. Patrick Esidlu.
Doc, you mean Doc?
And the man, he used the name of my friend Patrick Esidlu in Tema. Can you imagine?
Oh, I see.
Why? He's also Patrick Esidlu. Now, you see, I will quickly commend the police. Commend the police. I'll tell you what, and something that may not be known to a lot of our colleagues. We actually sent this thing to the police.
Okay.
And we sent it on Tuesday at 6:29. The Voice. And this is our head of programs getting back to me, says that I have contacted both Accra Central and the police headquarters public affairs department, and they have requested for the voice notes, so they check the details. Their initial response was that they were not aware of any such thing. They were going to check and get back to us. This is at 6:30 on Tuesday.
From Richard Mensah?
Yes, from Richard Mensah. So at the time when they requested for the thing and we sent, they had no knowledge of this. of course, within a short time, the thing went viral. Okay? And then 24 hours after, what do we hear? Did their audio tracking, mapping, and arrested the gentleman. And I think for me, that is a significant improvement and progress that the police has made. And a signal to all the people who hide on social media and misconduct themselves. Now we know that if you do it, the police can come after you.
Yeah.
And it's still Ghana police. Their card numbers start with GP, Ghana police.
That's not got to do with anything.
It means that by the time the lawyers come, you may have endured a few slaps.
You mean our brother?
When
that
which is unlawful,
No,
we
but they
should
won't
not
say
be
it.
happy.
That they won't say it. You understand? I won't be there. You won't be there.
Yeah.
So please, at least we should be guided by this and be responsible in the use of our new media and social media. Now they have arrested the guy. No matter what the guy does, he will see some punishment.
Yeah, sure.
If indeed what he narrated is false, it means he just fabricated a thing. If he insists on it and it didn't happen, then we should check into the mental hospital and see whether the man is okay.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
Because, look, the guy, it's the whole drama. The way the guy narrated, at some point he was laughing. He was even laughing at the police. In his fabrication, he was also laughing at somebody.
say he was in his bed. He couldn't go to work.
He couldn't go to work. You know. So it's a problem. We can't just let the man be like that. Maybe they will go and punish the man, and maybe he has some, mental issues. So they should also check that one.
Okay, we'll take another quick break. When we come back, we'll look at, we just have some few minutes left, about the issue about the police behavior with regards to stop and search and all that. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
It's City on the Go. You don't have to miss any of your favorite television and radio shows on City TV and City FM. Enjoy thrilling content from your world of great television and relevant radio at your convenience. Subscribe to CityTube on YouTube. Turn on your notification button and receive prompts on our live streaming sessions and new content uploads. For easy access to the CityTube page, scan the barcode on your screens. Subscribe to the CityTube page and voila! Unlimited content awaits you. Don't forget to subscribe to CityTube for amazing content from City TV and City FM.
And you're welcome back to the what the papers are saying. My name is Vivian Kai. Look, I'm here with Samuel Tamens as well as Richard Delascar. Gentlemen, we have just about 5 minutes or less to end the program. Sky, let me start with you on the rules around police stopping, searching. There's still the issue to do with the planting of stuff on people's, in people's car. Profiling, stereotyping, all that. We still have that challenge that we still need to look, into. With this one aside, knowing that the guy may have his own issues and all that.
Well, I mean, the position of the law, if you look at the requirements of Act 30, which is the law that governs procedures that the police should use, for instance, when they're dealing with arrests of the kind, that would involve, for instance, searching a vehicle or searching a house, is that ordinarily, before you effect an arrest or you effect a search of any kind, you need to get a warrant from a magistrate or a judge. But the law creates an exception where it is possible to effect an arrest or cause a search to be done where there is reasonable suspicion. You understand? You have reasonable cause to believe that a crime is about being committed or has been committed or is likely to be committed. In other words, you cannot just get up and see Papa Sam driving his vehicle on the road towards his home, and then you stop him and say you want to search his vehicle.
But that's what we see sometimes.
That is unlawful. The law imposes a duty on the officer who is seeking to commit or to carry out the search to have what is known as reasonable cause. In other words...
But does he have to disclose that reasonable...
Where do you draw the line on this?
Does he have to disclose it?
So
because
see,
there's also intelligence management.
You see. So the thing is that the law says that you are to avoid fanciful suspicion of wrong.
Oh, then they are all guilty.
So, for instance, if nobody had called the police to say that, oh, we saw a particular SUV committing X crime and had just left, say, Tesano, headed towards the Kwame Nkrumah circle, and an officer on duty saw a vehicle of that description or fitting that description approach him. If he saw that, then there is therefore reasonable cause to believe that the vehicle that is approaching him may have been the vehicle involved in the crime we're talking about. But when you do not have that, the law does not allow you to go into the person's vehicle.
So where do you draw the... Our own Umaru Sanda faced a similar
It was
case.
completely unlawful.
We've had... you drive at night, they stop you, they say, Madam, I need to search your car.
For what reason?
And then you say, is there a problem? They say, no, I need to... It's normal procedure.
It's not normal procedure. The law imposes a duty on your officer to have reasonable cause. Where there is no reasonable cause, he is effecting an unlawful
So what
search.
do you do as an individual, you know, if a thing like that happens to you, or just you and the police on the road in the middle of nowhere, or at night and a policeman, what do you do?
Okay.
They
So
drop
sometimes
something. They drop something. They drop something small.
Because, you know, I had an experience where I was returning from work. It was around 10:30, 11. I got to a place, there were policemen there, and then they stopped me, and then the one said, Madam, we want to search your car. And I pressed the boot, you know, the knob for the boot. And then another policewoman came and said, Madam, get out of the car and watch them search your car. Never do this mistake of sitting. It's wrong. Anything can happen.
You see, so
and she said, I like you, so I want to tell you this.
How
Another
about if you
policewoman
went
telling
to the
me
back of the vehicle and at the front of the vehicle
they had dropped. So that's why it's confusing.
You see,
What do you do?
so you see, there are a number of things that can happen. If you are unlawfully arrested, you reserve the right to sue the police for unlawful arrest. If you have reasons to believe that an officer has misconducted himself, you can go to the PIPS and lodge a formal complaint against the officer involved. Again, where, for instance, some items were taken out of your vehicle in breach of your right to privacy and many other things, and it turns out that what they did was unlawful, you have the right to take them on. So, yes, the law says that you should not resist arrest. Where the police say that they are putting you under arrest, you just give in. Because the moment you say you are resisting an arrest, you are breaching the law, which they can prosecute you for. But the position of the law is that the police are not laws unto themselves.
Okay, Samuel.
I think the police is doing a good job. They have made significant progress in the last 2 years. We must commend them. We see that visibility has increased in all the corners of the roads, including weekends, Sundays. They are all over the place. I just want to believe that it's not something that is just limited to the urban areas. Okay, there are long stretches of rural travel spaces that need police assistance, and I'm just hoping that they will extend their services to the regions, you know, because we hear stories about commercial vehicles being intercepted by armed robbers and things. So yes, they should take it to the regions. Coming to the roadblocks, I think again they need to review the process. The last time the media met the IGP, this issue came up. Kweku Bakun, Kwesi Pratt, all of them were there, and one of their major issues had to do with what you're talking about: the random stopping at night, causing irritating everybody with traffic, you know. And look, when I worked in many years ago, when I was in Sierra Leone, in Freetown, you don't go past a police barrier without an identification number
Of the barrier.
of the barrier.
Yeah.
So that when something happens, you can report with the identification number.
Yeah.
You understand? And this thing of if you announce that there's a barrier here, people will bypass. What is that? Do you want to encourage people to do the wrong, or you want to discourage them? In the United Kingdom, when you are driving on the highways, you see the cameras, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know that some of the cameras are redundant?
Yeah.
There's nothing in it because they just want to discourage people from doing the wrong thing. So please, police, stop irritating everybody with these road barriers. And when you get there, they stop you. They shine
Just
the
flash
lights.
the lights.
Then when they say, hey, resist car.
That's why your boys are here on the ground.
Your boys are here, oh, we are on the ground. I mean, if this is all you have to do, then there's no point being there.
Your boys haven't taken water.
And look, Charlie, you see the amount of resources they commit, the police service commits to doing these things, you have no idea.
Yeah.
So we can redirect some of these resources to get better returns
That's true.
if we are more scientific in our approach.
Exactly.
But this wholesale dumping them only to be doing meet and greet.
All of that meet and greet on our way home, they are there. We hope they will be there when we are going tonight. I haven't heard this.
They are doing meet and greet.
But thank you very much, guys. Our time is, far gone. Somewhat Mensa, thank you so much. Richard Sky, thank you so much. My name is Vivian Kai Loko. Thank you so much for watching. We'll return next week, same time. Goodbye.